Well, good morning and welcome to the MAPS 3 Citizens Advisory Board meeting of August the 25th, 2016. It appears that we have a quorum. Carol, do you agree? And therefore we'll call the meeting to order. You have been furnished with copies of the minutes proposed from the previous meeting of July 28th. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? Hearing none, shall we approve them? Been moved that we approve the minutes. Is there a second? Been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. As we begin the meeting, we want to begin by saying first that we have an ambitious schedule, so everybody relax. We're here. We'll get through this in an orderly fashion, but wanted to mention just a couple of things. First, items 16, 17, and 18 have been stricken from today's agenda. They were considered by the Trails and Sidewalks Committee, and they have asked us to postpone action on those. And we're also going to defer consideration of item 19. So items 16, 17, 18, and 19 will not be taken up even though they're in the previously published agenda. That brings us into, as we begin today, item 3. David?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have in your packet the MAPS 3 Revenue and Expenditure Report for the period ending July 31st, 2016. On the revenue side for the month, we have $8,806,243. For fiscal year, we have $8,806,243. And for total, on the revenue side of $647,598,205. On the expenditure side, for the month, $1,890,688. Likewise for the fiscal year, $1,890,688. And then for total expenditures on the program, $208,087,988. Then you also have a budget and obligations report in your packet, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have about either of those.
Any comments or questions regarding those reports? It's been moved that we accept the reports. Is there a second? Been moved and seconded. We accept the reports as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. The reports are received and accepted. That brings us to item 4, a presentation on the Convention Center. David?
Yes, sir. We have today a presentation on the MAPS 3 Convention Center, project M3-C003. And we have Todd Voth here from Populous to give you that presentation. So I'd like to invite him up.
Welcome, Todd.
It's good to see you all again, as always. We are very excited today to show you the developments on the Convention Center design. As many of you know, we've been working on this quite some time. We've had a recent presentation to the subcommittee, which we think went very well. And we're excited to show you today as well. When we first started into this process with the Convention Center, we said that we wanted to create a convention center that was unique to Oklahoma City and one that would position you in the marketplace like no other. And today you're going to see some imagery that we have not shown before that will kind of indicate where we're headed with this design. And I believe, wholeheartedly believe, that we're on the track to put you where we said we were going to put you. And we're extremely excited about it. So I'm going to ask our project designer, Adam Polish, to come up now and run through the presentation. Feel free to ask questions. We want you to understand everything, and if we need to go back and look at something, we're happy to do so. So thank you very much.
Hardly working. No. It's good to see some of you again. And thanks, Todd. I reiterate what Todd said. It's an exciting time, and it's been a few months since we've been in front of you, and we've done a lot of work with the development of the facility and wrong one. So, when we started this process back in January, we were very specific on what we were calling these design principles, and something that we've been very adamant about going over with our subcommittee every time we see them, that what is going to make this building unique in the industry, and it's the visitor experience, the district, division of shows, the ballroom, the urban integration, connections to the park, the development right across Robinson, expansion, and then future development opportunities for the district. So we use these through the whole design process just to kind of check our progress, to make sure we're checking all the boxes as we move through design. However, when we start to discuss the form of the building, we want to transition from these design principles to what we want to call our architectural design story. So what is starting to influence the look and the feel of the building, and how the building is going to start to touch the ground, anchor the district, and start to influence the surrounding development and its relationship to downtown. So a quick recap on the building program and how the building starts to lay out. We are still meeting the 45,000 square foot meeting room program, the 200,000 square foot exhibit hall, and the 30,000 square foot ballroom. We still have our meeting room program to the north facing downtown. We have a meeting room program to the south that's anchoring the southern end of the building. And we have our ballroom that is on top of all of this program, and it's cantilevered over with the views to the park. The building is still broken up onto the three, we'll call it 3.5 levels. We have the lowest level, which is our exhibit hall, which has our pedestrian entries. We have entries to the north of the building. We have entries directly across the building, across the park in the center of the building, and into the southern edge of the building to allow for some pedestrian entries down there. The second level is what we're calling our meeting room mezzanine. It's a full of meeting room program. Most of those meeting rooms have access to natural light along the facade. It's where we start to add levels of flexibility within the program, how we can divide up these meeting rooms and create different shaped rooms to accommodate the different events. And then our uppermost level, along with some meeting room program, that's what we're calling our ballroom experience. And you can see the purple box up there. The ballroom truly is at the center of the building and does command a lot of attention. And you'll start to see how this is starting to influence some of the architectural moves in the design. So, like I said, moving from the design principles to what we're calling our design story, this is the story that's going to start influencing the materials of the building, the way that the architectural forms, overall, the overall aesthetic of the building that you're going to see today. And what we've just, through all the times that we've been here, it's a shame that you don't get to see kind of us do this, because in our office we have, images and sketches and all of the research that we've done on the site, and just the look and the vibe and the feel of what this means to be in Oklahoma City. So we've come up with these storylines. One is core to shore. How do you connect the building as an anchor from the downtown corridor to all the development to the south of the building? The next one is the building is the event district. So what does it mean for this new convention center, and how does it start to respond to the potential hotel, the arena, the park development, and how they can start to connect with each other? And then balanced asymmetry. How does the program within the building start to direct some of the architectural moves and influence the appearance? And then one of the ones that I think we're the most proud of is Earth to Sky. The building truly is unique in that there's not a lot of context around the building right now. So the way that the building touches the ground, when you see it from the park, and how it reaches into the sky, it starts to create a dynamic vision. So a few diagrams that we created to just start to demonstrate what we mean by the building as the core to shore, earth to sky. So when you look at this site section, you can see the density and the scale of downtown, and how it starts to lends itself to a smaller scale as you move to the south towards the Skydance Bridge. And you can see that our building truly is right in the center of that Robinson corridor, and how it starts to interact with both of those spaces. So some precedent imagery here on what we see as the core, the shore, and the sky, and the earth, and how our building can start to respond to those moves. These are some images that we've just had, and we've decided to throw them in the presentation to show the kind of imagery that we're using to start inspire the architecture. A lot of local palette, colors, form, the different neighborhoods that we have around the district, the Arts District, Automobile Alley, Central Business District. All of those things need to have influence on how the design of the building takes place from an interior and an exterior perspective. And then when you talk about the natural palette, when you think about what it does mean to be the earth and on the horizon and in the sky, you can start to generate some dynamic imagery and some colors from that. So using these as precedents to start to influence the way that the building's starting to look. And then knowing, that the building is west-facing, and that is not an ideal condition, but we are confident that we are managing it and using some of these architectural forms and these precedent images to start to manage that west-facing condition and add that level of protection to the building. And it gives us a great opportunity to play with some of the light, some of the daylighting maneuvers that we're incorporating in the facility as well. So this is that first image that I think a lot of you have seen. This is standing in the park, essentially right above the amphitheater in the park, looking through the park to the east, and you can see just the scale of the building and how the building does rise above the trees in the park, and how the backdrop of the building truly is the blue sky, and the building does act as the horizon on the site. So this is a good representation of the kind of presence that this building will have as the backdrop to the park. As we go through these other renderings, you can see, looking north along Robinson, you can see the ballroom in the architectural form and how it commands the attention while still providing that level of protection for the west-facing condition, and how it does truly anchor the center of the building. And then again, looking south on Robinson, that northwestern corner of the building and how it sticks out and essentially tips its cap to downtown. We've angled all of these meeting rooms to frame these specific views to downtown, to the park, to this Skydance Bridge and Union Station. This is just that first opportunity that you see when approaching the building, how the building kind of turns its head and looks right at you. So it's a dynamic image, and it's exciting because of the scale of the building, and we've broken it down into these unique moments. The building will truly take on a life of its own from these different viewpoints along Robinson. So to reiterate what we're talking about, the event district, this is something that we believe is new for Oklahoma City. When you start to talk about the different activities that you can have in the park and how those relate to the expansion to the south, and then the potential hotel, obviously the Thunder command a lot of attention around here, and Chesapeake Arena is proven to be quite the anchor along Robinson. So the way that these buildings can start to tie in with each other, and our convention center is truly an anchor in this district, and how they can start to maintain this relationship as they develop. So when I talk about that, it's interesting. When we talk about convention centers, there's evolution of the building. Convention centers historically were building focused. So whatever is happening inside the building, nobody really cares, just as long as it's happening inside the building. That's kind of what we have at Cox Center today. It's very stoic and oppressing. So we look at the next generation where it's event focused, where you start to bring people into the building and make it a more inviting facility. And where we're at today is city-focused buildings. It's about the inside and out relationship of the convention center and the district, and how do you let people in and let them out. And it's more about bringing people to the center and then sending them out into the city to explore all the amenities that they have around the facility. So to reiterate, we have some of these slides that we've been talking with our subcommittee for quite some time, and we just want to show that we're still taking into consideration some of the points even within this updated design of the architecture. Still have our three entries, one to the north, the center entry, and the southern entry. The way that the building is angled now, we're exposing the interior spaces to some of these dynamic views that we've been talking about. And specifically the center ballroom view. When you're standing on that ballroom, you will have a panoramic view looking west that opens up to the downtown corridor all the way to the Skydance Bridge and Union Station. From a site planning perspective, because it's such a large site, we're starting to break down the different areas where the building touches the ground. The first is the new 4th Street corridor. We're calling that the Urban Prairie, and what that is an outdoor plaza that is convention center and hotel specific. So how that building can start to tie in with the hotel becomes an extremely important connection in the event district. And then the entry garden, what we're calling is an extension of the park. So if you remember in the park, we have a lot of program along Robinson. We have the the food truck, the farmer's market, and a lot of program happening there. So it's our job to respond to that and provide a sister space to the space across Robinson to allow for that back and forth relationship. And then to the south, we have our Woodland Walk, and we're envisioning that as a heavily planted facade, a heavily planted area of the site that will add some interest and some depth to that southern-facing facade of the exhibit hall as you come up and down Robinson and Shields. As I said before, the building is quite large. The facade itself is approximately 600 feet long. That has a lot of potential to be monotonous and uninteresting. So we specifically broken this program down into 3 unique scales. So we have the scale B to the north, which is the stacked meeting rooms to the north. We have the scale C to the south, which is also the stacked meeting rooms in the south. And then we have the ballroom scale, which we're calling scale A. So being very specific about how the building is reading and breaking it down to a more pedestrian-friendly, manageable experience. So, and then again, the architectural forms. These forms are serving a specific purpose. They're a passive maneuver to protect the building from the western-facing condition. So balanced asymmetry, when we met with our subcommittee back in January, we had almost 40 options, and then we went down to 12, 8, 3, and 1. So we created this design together with our subcommittee, the way that these program areas are starting to lay out. So when I go through these diagrams, the first diagram of the programmatic pods, that's something that we generated with our team. And then how those pods started to influence the form of the building, and then how we enclose the building and protect the building. And after we've done that, that last diagram shows how we can still express that program in the architecture of the building. So when you break the design down, it's actually quite simple in its elements, and simplicity is good here because of the scale of the building. So when you go back and forth, you can see the blue protective elements and how those start to translate into the actual architecture of the building. So then when I get to earth to sky, this starts to influence more of the materiality of the building and how people can start to influence the different levels in the exterior of the facility. So we would envision the building having a neutral palette. Most convention centers in general have neutral palettes to allow for the ability to brand the spaces for meeting planners to come in and put on their own branding for their specific shows. So we envision a neutral palette, but however, as the different levels start to stack, we would envision having a specialty material or accent materials that start to correspond with this design story. When we think about the earth, we think about the lowest level, and we're starting to mine some of this imagery and select some of these materials based on that concept. And some of the words that we've come up with are textural, modest, dramatic, secluded, and how you can create a true unique experience and what is typically, your exhibit hall level, which is just 200,000 square feet of open space. So starting to create these memorable experiences on these levels. And we've included some white renderings of the interior of the building when we pulled the materials off, because we just want to show you the way that some of these spaces are starting to look from a volumetric standpoint. This is that entry lobby that's to the north. So you start to see the scale and the height of the space as you enter the building, and you see the escalators cascading between all 3 of the levels and the grand stair, and how people can start to circulate the building. Again, allowing natural light, but still using a level of protection to make it comfortable for the patrons. This is a similar lobby that we have to the south, that southern entry. Then when we get to the meeting room level, which is 24 feet in the air, we call it, the canopy level. You truly are going to be pulled above the trees, and you will have these views right along the tree line out to the park. This is a good opportunity for us to bring in some warmer materials and some stuff with a more natural look and feel. And when we were going through this design exercise with the subcommittee, there was concern that some of these corridors, because of the length of the building, were going to be kind of boring and nondiscrete. So what we're showing here is this is that really long corridor in the center of the building, and you can see that we are purposely exposing to the left of the image natural daylight and views out to the park, and you have your meeting rooms to the right. And in the distance, you can see the double height atrium space and how you can start to tell that story of the corridor and the natural light. And it truly will be a dynamic experience, and something that we definitely feel will not be long and ominous. So, and we talk a lot about meeting rooms, and this is just an example of how we plan on using natural light to open up these meeting rooms. We know that a wall of glass at the end of the meeting room is not ideal. It still has to be manageable and controllable. So being specific about where we allow natural light to come in and we allow views out, you can see an example of just opening up the corners a little bit. So it gives somebody in the meeting room an opportunity to walk up to the glass and experience that view out to the park, that connection to the district. And in the ballroom level, when we talk about the sky, it truly does ascend to the top of the building, and that story becomes very powerful of rising from the ground to the sky. And you can see how we're going to be focusing on light and shadow and some reflectivity to start to brand that space. And this is on the top of the escalator as you arrive to that ballroom level. So you can see how the space opens up. We're planning on having vertical lifting partitions at the front of the ballroom to allow for easy access from the ballroom to the pre-function to the balcony, and essentially allowing the ballroom to grow from a 30,000 square foot ballroom to a 45,000 square foot ballroom. So that's where we're currently at. We will be continually working here over the next few months to start applying some materials and refining the architectural form. So any questions that you guys have, I'd be happy to answer.
Questions, comments? Mike?
Adam, there had been some discussion early on about the traffic flow in front of the arena and drop off and how to drop someone off and get turned around and back to the parking lot. Have you addressed all that?
So we had a subcommittee meeting back in June, and we addressed the site circulation with our subcommittee. We had a series of options. I would say that our subcommittee was happy with our solution, with the caveat that we're still a little unsure of where parking is going to go directly around the site. So we have a solution that solves the parking within our facility to allow for that pedestrian drop-off. It then comes down to which parking garage potentially are we sending them to, and how do they make a left turn or a right turn. But within our site, we have the appropriate amount and length of drop-offs for patrons across Robinson. It's something that we will definitely be addressing as we move forward and design with sites a final solution, but it has been developed and it's been presented to our subcommittee.
Any others? I want to pass on to you and ask Adam to elaborate a little about the consideration they're giving to technology. Our colleague Sue, who was at this was at the subcommittee meeting but unable to be here today, asked Adam a couple of questions about what accommodations we're making for changing technology and how we're going to address that. Would you share that with the committee?
Yeah, absolutely. So Susan was specifically asking about, the way that I heard it is how do you provide a future-proof building for technology that doesn't exist yet? And so, there's the things that are standard now, Wi-Fi, fiber and all that stuff, which we obviously will be including in this building. But when you start to think about the way that people are interacting with their phones and how you can put those systems in place, for most conventions now, you register for the event online on your phone, and you might not ever actually see a person in the convention center. You're just kind of going off your phone. So it's a conversation that we'll have with our subcommittee and our building operator when that gets decided on what that level of integration they want with digital signage, RFDI, wayfinding, that kind of stuff. We 100% believe that we want this to be the smoothest running, most technological, up-to-date convention center. You don't get many opportunities to build one from the ground up, so we fully intend on incorporating the latest technology and having that foresight to plan for future upgrades. However, it will be a conversation between us and the building operator after the building is completed on how they plan on, reinvigorating the technology on a timely basis. A lot of it has to do with wayfinding.
Yeah.
but technology fails, so you might need signs on the rooms that aren't digital at some point in time too. So we'll.
I wanted to also pass on from the subcommittee to the Citizens Advisory Board that our professional event people, the Mike Carriers, John Williams, Roy Williams, were enthusiastic in their response at the subcommittee meeting about the direction we're heading. And I think they would all want you to know that. Any other questions or comments? Adam and Todd, thank you. Really appreciate you being here and the hard work you're doing. Ryan, glad to have you here too. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
That brings us to item 4, David.
Yes, sir.
I guess.
Item 5 is recommend resolution approving final specifications, MAPS 3 Convention Center demolition package 2, and authorizing the city clerk to advertise for bids to be received October 11, 2016, project M3-C007. As we continue to acquire property in the convention center area, we need to clear those areas, and we're doing them in medium-sized packages, I'd call them. So this is just another one of those. If you recall, we had one last month also. And this comes with the approval from the subcommittee.
Yes. Subcommittee recommends approval. Is there further discussion? Been moved and seconded that we adopt the resolution approving item 5. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution of approval is adopted. Item 6, David.
Item 6 is recommend resolution ratifying and approving addendum number 1, MAPS 3 Park Environmental Remediation, Upper Park, awarding contract to Meridian Contracting Incorporated, $289,030, and approving contracts and bonds. Project M3-P013. This is, as it says, for some environmental remediation. We have assistance in the cost for this project through a Brownsfield grant, so we will be paying approximately 40% of the cost of this remediation. And this comes from the approval from the Parks Subcommittee.
Especially with it coming in under budget.
Okay. Been moved for approval. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is approved. Item 7, David.
Item 7 is recommend resolution approving change order number 3 and amendment number 3, MAPS 3 Upper Downtown Park, Public Park, Project 1, Public Utility Relocation, Street and Alley Removal, increase of $133,600. Project M3-P004/WC-0811/SC-0908. So as this said, it is a change order for the utility work that is going on in the park area. There are a few items on here. Lowering the water line. There was a water line that was higher than what was anticipated, so it needs to be lowered. That's $5,800. Storm sewer connection, discovered that it wasn't connected to the main long time ago. This was existing construction, so we had to fix that, $620. And then there was some inlets that needed to be added that were omitted from the plans, $4,300. The duct bank pull rope, we installed what we call a multi-cell duct bank. So it's this conduit with several cells in it, and it's to allow the utility companies to get in a much more confined space, because they like to be about 5 feet apart, and you can imagine when you've got 6, 7, 10 of those, they start getting a corridor that's 50 feet wide through there. So this conduit allowed us to get them within about a 5-foot space, all of them. So we have this conduit, but with that conduit, in order to get those utilities through there, we should have had what we call a pull rope, which is a rope that is already installed in there so they can hook their utilities and pull their utilities through it. So this is to provide that pull rope. And then we have the usual quantity revisions, more of this, less of that, and it's detailed in the actual change order if you need more detail than that. But it's just field conditions that were different than what we saw as we get underground, things that we find, and this is to adjust for that. And this comes with the approval of the subcommittee.
Any comment, Kim?
The only thing that I would like to comment is that I sincerely appreciate that all the work that is being done on this type of relocation and alley removal. It's not the prettiest part of the park, but certainly we're taking the spirit of looking forward for what our utility needs will be, those relocation needs, and employing ways to make sure that we are saving as much money as possible, being as efficient as possible, and looking toward the future as well. So it comes with our approval, and I'd love to move that we approve this resolution.
Kim has moved that we approve the resolution. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that we approve. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is approved. Item 8.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 8 is a recommend resolution approving amendment number 1, Maps 3 Hudson Avenue Street Improvements, a decrease of $57,024. Project M3-P004A/PC-00479/WC-0895. Similarly to how I've described amendments in the past, but this one is a decrease. There was less items that we needed, and we like to keep our bookkeeping on a month-to-month basis, so we try to keep it current. This comes with the approval of the subcommittee also.
Which subcommittee is this?
It came out of the Park Subcommittee.
Well, this is historic, a decrease, change order for decrease. Congratulations, David and Kim.
Well, my husband's really thankful that I'm learning how to save money as well.
Okay.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. It is approved. Item 9, David.
Item 9 is recommend resolution approving change order number 19, Maps 3 Oklahoma State Fairgrounds Phase 2, new expo building, increase of $64,572.48. Project M3-F002. You can see in your memo there is an item for soap dispensers that were inadvertently left off the plans. There's some bollards that needed to be added to protect overhead doors. Condensation mop sink drains that needed to be added. A counter modification that needed to be done because of the soda machines that the fairgrounds purchased. And then there's a zero-cost Centennial Plaza revisions, but we needed to get that in the document to document that it was being changed. Freezer floor modifications, additional roof walk pads, and jam extension claddings. And this all comes with the approval from the Fairgrounds Subcommittee.
Bob, any comments? Been moved and seconded that we approve this change order. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. Item 10, David.
Item 10 is authorized purchase of furniture, fixtures, and equipment not to exceed $650,000, Maps 3 Oklahoma State Fairgrounds New Expo Building Project M3-F002. As it says, this is the furniture and fixtures that we will be purchasing for the Expo Building. We'll be doing this via city contract, but it's coming to you for approval, and the Fairgrounds Subcommittee voted to approve it.
Okay. Any comment from the subcommittee? Been moved that we approve it and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. Item 11.
Item 11 is recommend a resolution approving change order number 7, Maps 3 Senior Health and Wellness Center number 1, increase of $110,694, project M3-H002. There's some data cabling that we needed to change, and it has to do with the fitness equipment that is in the facility. We had coax cable specified, but as we begin to talk to the suppliers, they have some issues sometimes with coax, so this is to provide Cat 5 cabling. It will provide both of them, so they'll have an option to connect it, whichever works best for their equipment. That's roughly $10,000. The biggest part of this change order is a change in the pool. We've had a lot of email, and we've had a lot of conversation within the subcommittee about changing the pool to a saltwater pool. And I think we've even had some of that with this body during the presentations. We're very far along in the construction. We feel very comfortable with where we are as far as the change order amounts and our contingency money, and that along coupled with the operator's request that we change this to a saltwater pool, and with the emails and correspondence we get from the public and just the general comments, we're recommending that we change this pool to a saltwater pool. This item is a little different than usual because it is a not-to-exceed number. We've had conversations with the contractor. We have a general idea of what it's going to cost, but we're not quite there. But the lead time for the equipment that we need to change to a saltwater pool is 6 to 8 weeks, and we're not real far from finishing the project. So we wanted to put an item on here with a not-to-exceed amount so he can go ahead and order the equipment. We will come back once we get the actual amount and do a second change order to get it exactly where it should be. That was a long explanation, but this also comes with the approval from the Senior Health and Wellness Subcommittee.
Mike and Cecilia, you all have any comment about that?
Oh, David, of course, explained it pretty thoroughly. I think it's important to note that what this does, it makes, quite frankly, it easier on the skin and the irritation. And it's just, and we've learned a lot about saltwater since our last meeting. And it's the second generation of saltwater, as David explains it. And so, again, to get it in time for the equipment to be ordered, because we're pretty far along, we need to do this at this time. So I think it's pretty exciting, and it also is going to look, it looks like that we're going to be able to do the same kind of pool in all of the wellness centers. So we won't have just one standalone, you know, that will be nicer, for lack of a better term, than the rest. So I think it's a great idea, and appreciate David's lead on this and figuring out the timing. So I would, unless there are other questions, move the resolution.
Any comments, Cecilia? Right. Been moved and seconded. We approve the resolution. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is adopted. We're going to have salt water. Is that right, David?
Yes, sir.
All right. I'm feeling better already. Okay. Item 12.
Item 12 is recommend resolution approving change order number 1, MAPS 3 Senior Health and Wellness Center. Number 2, increase of $186,110, project M3-H003. So this is Wellness Center number 2. If you remember, we had to make some revisions in order to accommodate the parking requirements at Capitol Hill High School. So this item number 1 is twofold. It allows for the reconfiguration of the parking lot to change it from a east-west direction or orientation to a north-south orientation, and allows the traffic flow to connect into that loop road that goes around Capitol Hill. But more importantly, the bigger part of it is that we have decreased the contractor's area that he can work. Therefore, there is some impact on his schedule because it's more difficult for him to work. So this is to accommodate the additional time and additional difficulty in that work. And then there's also a storm drain line modification, $11,000. There was a utility discovered that they didn't know about, and I had to get around that. So this also comes with a recommendation from the subcommittee.
Move to approval. Second. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is adopted. Item 13.
Item 13 is recommend resolution approving joint use agreement and cooperative construction and maintenance agreement between the City of Oklahoma City and the Oklahoma Department of Transportation for MAPS 3 Trail Improvements Phase 2, Project 2, I-44 West Trail Project M3-T002. There's 3 items that are similar because we have 3 sections of the I-44 trail, and each one was done independently. This is an agreement between the city and the Department of Transportation because we are building a trail on some of their right-of-way, some of our right-of-way, but also some of theirs, and this agreement, for the most part, just spells out who's going to be responsible if something gets damaged, that we will have to replace the trail, that ODOT's not going to be responsible for the trail for mowing and maintenance and things like that. There's a lot of things in it, but that's really the gist of the project. And I want to specifically thank Carol and Amanda and Wayne for working so hard on getting this done.
Carol, I guess we'd need to consider these each separately. Okay, well, then let's deal with item 13. Any comment from the subcommittee at all?
The subcommittee did not have a quorum, but those present recommended this go forward.
All right. Shall we approve it? It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution contained in item 13 on the agenda. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. Item 14 is similar, David?
Yes, sir. Recommend resolution approving joint use agreement and cooperative construction and maintenance agreement between the City of Oklahoma City and the Oklahoma Department of Transportation for MAPS 3 trail improvements, Phase 2, Project 1, I-44 West Trail Project M3-T002A.
All right. Further discussion? It's been moved and seconded that we approve this resolution for the joint use agreement. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. Item 15 is similar.
Right. 15 is recommend resolution approving joint use agreement and cooperative construction and maintenance agreement between the City of Oklahoma City and the Oklahoma Department of Transportation for MAPS 3 trail improvements project, or Phase 2, Project 3, I-44 West Trail Project M3-T002B.
Been moved and seconded that we approve item 15. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The resolution is approved. I will just remind you that items 16, 17, 18, and 19 will not be considered today. So that brings us to item 20, David.
Yes, sir. Item 20 is recommend resolution approving final plans and specifications, MAPS 3 modern streetcar main line, and authorizing the city clerk to advertise for bids to be received October 11, 2016, project M3-S007. I have to admit I'm a bit giddy today that we have this on the agenda, and Mark Dorn is here to give you a presentation on these plans.
Mark, are you giddy?
I am.
Okay.
It's been quite an effort, about almost 20 months of final design work. I'm Mark Dorn. I'm the design manager for the streetcar project. I'm with AECOM, and we are working as a sub-consultant to the Jacobs team. And we're really excited to be here and deliver this major milestone for you. So I'm going to just give a brief summary of the contents of the bid package. I included this slide here just as an example of our approach. This is the picture on the left is a project that's in construction that we designed in Detroit. A very similar condition in their downtown square, campus marshes, high profile urban design, quality or high quality urban design, very similar to Project 180. And we had a concerted effort to try to minimize the disruption to those improvements that have just been installed in the last 5 years or so. So this gives you an idea of how we're trying to surgically introduce the tracks into the travel way. The bid package itself includes all the track elements, all the civil improvements, utility relocations, public utility relocations, and a few private modifications, all the electrical systems, the power stations, the overhead wires, also the stops and shelters. And we thought it would be a good idea just to refresh everyone's memory about the alignment itself. And, oops, I think I needed to go. Thank you. So we have a little fly-through of the alignment, and the intention here is just to describe exactly the route and the contents of the bid package. So here is Hudson. Oh, I forgot I'm driving. Wow. There it is. Sorry about that. So on Hudson, we start at the maintenance facility, and we continue north, and we're essentially in the middle of the road here. And this is more for a safety precaution for just a more intuitive arrangement of the tracks, but it's for the trains to go back and forth through the maintenance facility as they go to the main line. But it's also designed to be convertible. So if there's an extension to the Core to Shore area or further south, we can convert this into a northbound track, and there would be an accompanying southbound track on Walker. Pardon me. So and we've done a lot of coordination with Park Design and the Hudson Roadway Project, and so we'll be just inserting those tracks, and all the poles for the OCS, the overhead wires have been coordinated with the park, so we're integrating the street lighting poles with the wire support poles. So as we cross the boulevard, as you see about in the middle of the screen, we are entering into the revenue line. And so the revenue line, the tracks will switch to the right side of Hudson and continue north across Reno and then up and having a stop at the Myriad Gardens. And so if you recall from the last couple months, we introduced two services. We have the Midtown service that will go up to St. Anthony's Hospital and the Bricktown service. And this is at stop 6, this is where the Bricktown service will diverge from the main line track and provide the service headed east into Bricktown. The Midtown loop will continue north on Hudson in that right lane. It will be stopping at the library. Nothing too special with this. Again, we're trying to minimize the scope of the track improvements. I will note that all of this segment that I've described so far will be wireless. So we have the hybrid battery streetcar technology, and this segment of Hudson from the boulevard up to the transit center will be wireless. It's at the transit center, our stop number 8, as you see in the screen, is where the wired segment starts. So the streetcar will go up the hill by the memorial and stop just on the far side of Robinson, and that provides that connection to the inbound service, as you see on Robinson with stop number 18. There's that inbound service once you complete the loop, or the Midtown loop. So we've built in special provisions for the streetcar so it can communicate to the traffic signals at various locations. Number 1, to provide safe maneuvers. So in the example of 4th Street and Broadway, we were taking a left turn, and with a streetcar, it's, we want to make sure this is done in a controlled fashion, and so we will stop all the traffic while that streetcar makes its maneuver. And so with that technology, we are also able to manipulate the timing of the traffic signal operations and provide a more expedient service for the streetcar when that's needed. Continuing north on Broadway, as a reminder, we are converting the angle parking back to a parallel, or more traditional parallel parking along the east side of Broadway. Along the west side of Broadway, we'll be maintaining, I think we're actually recapturing or adding a few angle parking spots in order to mitigate the few spaces that are lost on the east side. We have a stop in front of the Red restaurant just south of 5th, and then continuing north, we have another stop just on the south side of 8th Street. We are adding a traffic signal at 8th Street to facilitate a safe pedestrian crossing to the platform. Again, we are in that right-hand lane as it continues north. And then we proceed north up to stop number 12, which is just short of 11th Street. We'll be adding a traffic signal at this location as well, again, to provide the safe pedestrian access, but also to allow the streetcar to make that turn, that left-hand turn across Robinson entering 11th Street. The fly-through doesn't do it justice, but we are realigning 11th Street, so it's a more a smoother transition as the right-of-way has a jog. And then we have worked with Public Works on a few modifications, minor modifications to traffic control along 11th Street, again with the eye to expedite the train operations. And these are just very low-tech, changes to street stop signs along the 11th Street, making sure it's all safe, but again, expeditious for the streetcar operation. We have a stop at Hudson on the near side, and the alignment will then continue across Walker and then turn south onto Dewey. Dewey is where our end of line for the Midtown run will be provided. The train will be located along the curbside in a transit-only lane. This will allow it for the streetcar to dwell and recover its schedule and allow for the operator to take a break. It still provides a lane of traffic in each direction within the right-of-way, and so and given the volumes of Dewey, it's well accommodated for the traffic capacity and the emergency access, for that matter, into the hospital. But when the Midtown loop is ready to start its run, it'll proceed to 10th Street, and again, using the train to wayside communication, negotiate a turn onto 10th Street. It will operate through the roundabout. Now, there's a few modifications to the sidewalks on the south side of that roundabout, mostly just to provide the clearance for that streetcar as it traverses through, and then enters 10th Street. So 10th Street, we have a matching stop at Hudson, and we continue to the east, and we have another stop at Robinson. It is pulled back a little bit. We've been working with the developer, or the property owners there, because we'll need a corner clip for the alignment to come across that corner and onto Robinson. So if anyone has any questions, please be sure to interject as you like. Coming southbound on Robinson, we'll have a stop at the law school, and this is where we go back onto, or lower, the streetcar will lower its pantograph, the apparatus that reaches up and touches the wire, and the wireless operation starts at this location. So continuing south, past the Memorial, we'll have that paired stop at the intersection of 4th and Robinson. And then heading through the heart of the business district, we'll have a stop at Park. Now we've taken care too to preserve as much on-street parking as possible. There will be one or two parking spots that are eliminated in this block. That was primarily to part of our agreement with OG&E. They had some major facilities there that we need to accommodate and do our best to minimize any impacts to their facilities. Primarily along this block, the parking has been removed anyways for I'm not sure what reasons. But so as we continue south and past the Cole Court Hotel, the alignment will just naturally transition into that left lane as it approaches Sheridan, and again using the train to wayside communication to the traffic signal and negotiate that left turn onto Sheridan. Now this is the location where the Bricktown service, as I described, when it takes that right turn on Sheridan, and this is where the two services will merge again. And to finish our tour we'll end up back on Sheridan. But the alignment, the track placement, we're maintaining the bike access along Sheridan. This is one of the major streets identified for bike circulation as part of the Public Works Master Plan for bicycle circulation through the downtown. The other blocks would be on 4th Street. I've neglected to mention that we will be converting 4th Street to have protected bike lanes along 4th Street. And then essentially the bike master plan is a box around downtown, and so the eastern edge is E.K. Gaylord, and we've worked with the Project 180 designers for E.K. Gaylord on how that transition of bikes from Sheridan to northbound on E.K. Gaylord will work. This is also, if you recall, the location where the intermodal hub has funded the tracks to head south on E.K. Gaylord. So we will have a switch that we will be installing as part of this mainline contract, and the contractor will then connect the tracks to the switch to the tracks that are being constructed as part of the E.K. Gaylord Project 180 improvements. And then, again, this is all wireless operation, and we'll head underneath the railroad bridge and our first stop in Bricktown on Sheridan is services the intermodal hub. This is where the streetcar will go back on wire. So this will be a mandatory stop. Streetcar will raise its pantograph and then continue its service. So continuing on, we have a stop at Mickey Mantle, and then the alignment turns to the right and southbound on Joe Carter. Joe Carter, we have created a transit-only lane for the streetcar, again, similar to Dewey, maintaining one lane of traffic in each direction along the east side of the alignment. There's several reasons for this, but the biggest benefit is because it will allow the streetcar to bypass any traffic on that approach to Reno as it heads southbound. And because this is a point where, because Joe Carter is such a minor volume street, we'll really receive a benefit in the train operations by being able to truncate Reno and allow the traffic operations on Reno in order to allow that streetcar to move and around the corner and enter the Reno traffic safely. So then heading westbound on Reno, we have the matching stop at Mickey Mantle, and then the matching stop at the intermodal hub, and then at stop number 3 before the train goes underneath the railroad bridge again, we will go back to a wireless operation. This is where we're back at the Cox Center, and that new track I was describing will then marry back into the tracks on Reno, continuing to the west. So we'll have a stop serving the Cox Center and Chesapeake Arena, and then we head south as part of the alignment change that was negotiated earlier this summer. We've caught the design up for this new segment that will serve the convention center. So we have stop number 5, we call it, that will serve the convention center hotel, the convention center, and the park as well. So this is stop number 5 is a unique stop where we'll have actually 2 tracks. And so I described the Midtown service. Their end of line will be up at Dewey. Well, the Bricktown end of line will be here at stop number 5. And so we create 2 tracks so that Bricktown service can pull out and not impede a Midtown service. It is at this point, too, because we're under wireless operation, the Bricktown, we've built in what we call a charging bar. So it's only about a 100-foot stretch of the overhead power, and the Bricktown service will be making its stop and a longer dwell, allowing the operator to have a break, and using that time for the streetcar to deploy its pantograph and receive some charge during that dwell period. And then we are, I guess it should be noted that the tracks will have diverged from the street right-of-way. We will be in our own exclusive lane, starting at Robinson. Actually, we started that at about 2nd Street to help segregate the traffic from the streetcar. And then as the streetcar turns and runs parallel to the new Oklahoma Boulevard, we'll be in our own track along the north side of the new sidewalk. And so we'll be completely out of the boulevard's new improvements, and which won't be affected at all by the new streetcar construction. Oops, sorry. Uh-oh. What have I done? So the alignment will continue to the west and have another train to wayside communication with the intersection of Oklahoma and Hudson for the train to re-enter Hudson and continuing north on Hudson as I described earlier. So the Bricktown service, after making its stop at the Myriad Garden, will turn eastbound onto Sheridan. It will turn into the left lane. So we won't have any stops along the Myriad Gardens on Sheridan. And so the reason why we put the tracks in the left lane is primarily because of the bike access issue that I described earlier. So Sheridan being the major bike street, there's bike lanes to the west, or planned for on the west of Hudson, the bike lanes that Project 180 installed to the east of Robinson. It's in this stretch, we don't have any bike lanes, and so we wanted to preserve that right lane for bikes with a Shero operation. It's just segregating the tracks from the bikes is very important because those rails can pose a safety hazard if you were to share the operations of bikes on the tracks. So it's something that we design around and try to avoid. And then just to wrap up the tour, as the streetcar approaches Robinson, again, it'll be in that left lane. It will use a special transit phase, same technology, communicating with a traffic signal for the train to change lanes, essentially, from that left lane arrangement in front of the gardens to the right side as it enters the stop serving the Cox Center. Any questions on the tour?
I had a question. You mentioned the track and the stop in front of the intermodal hub, but that's not on the actual route. So would that just be for special services or?
The one on E.K. Gaylord?
Yes.
Yeah, so the opportunity was with the intermodal hub Tiger Grant that it provided the funding to build that track. And along with that, we built a stop, just the civil improvements. So the actual sidewalk and platform modifications are there, but we have not included a shelter. It's not intended to be a revenue stop, and so we didn't want any confusion. The benefit, though, of putting the tracks in now is, A, the funding was available and it avoids disruption in the future, but it's really planned, it could serve as a short-circuit track for Embark or the streetcar operator. If needed, they can do an early turn back instead of going into the Bricktown district. But primarily, the function will be in the future when there's another extension or another line, say from the University Hospital down. A line would go. Well, the overall master plan was a line from the hospital down to Coeur d'Alene. And so for that route to work most efficiently, it wouldn't divert into Bricktown. Instead, it would just continue south as best as possible, and that's where the function of that track comes into play.
Okay. I'm sorry, I may have misunderstood. Did you say it wouldn't be a revenue stop? I did want to ask what that meant.
A revenue stop is a regular stop where patrons, the riders would get on and off. And so this would, at the stop in front of the intermodal hub would not be a revenue.
Revenue meaning,
Where customers get on and off regularly at this point. So,
but revenue meaning a pay, is that?
yeah, I'm sorry, it's maybe a
Yeah, that hasn't
transit
been
term
determined yet, has it?
the active operational stop where
Yeah, okay.
a patron would get on or off the streetcar.
Yeah, it's a term of art, so theoretically, let's say the first 6 months were free.
Yeah.
But yet, every stop would actually still be called a revenue stop in like streetcar land, streetcar parlance. Even though you're not physically paying, it's just a term of art meaning that it's a part of the regular route.
It's the operational stop. Yes, sorry for the confusion.
I had a quick question.
Sure.
Why was it determined that stop number 5 needed a wind wall?
So it'll be, that's the one near the convention center, right?
Yep.
So it'll be the only stop that has people coming in from both sides, and it actually would be the only stop that wouldn't have a wind wall, because every other stop will have a place for people to sit, and it'll have an actual stop with a little roof and a back to it. And the way it was set up originally, Stop 5 didn't have that, so it had no place for you to hide from the wind. So we just asked them to put up literally to kind of 6, 7 foot tall, 8 feet long wind walls. That way you can stand on either side of it as you're waiting on your streetcar.
Yeah. And some of the renderings in the rest of my presentation will show that a little bit better. Oh, thank you.
Other questions for Mark?
So just to describe, wrap up describing the contents. If you need to just press play there. There you go. Uh-oh. There we go. Thank you. So the track slab itself, we've encapsulates the rail. We've already purchased the rail. The delivery of the rail materials will start, I believe, next month. Generally, it's a 12-inch deep concrete section, trying to minimize that excavation that happens in the street. It does have fairly heavy reinforcement. The reason behind that is, besides standard pavement design, it's primarily to provide the ability for a utility in the future to excavate underneath the tracks while still maintaining service. So that structure actually provides a spanning capability, and so it's designed more like a bridge, and the streetcar or the track can span up to 10-foot trench. And that's been important in our utility negotiations to try to minimize those relocation requirements, but yet take care of the utilities' needs for access and maintenance. The tricky part of the tracks is between the rails. We want that to be as flat as possible, for as much as possible. Not in all cases, but there are some exceptions. But generally, when you're putting a flat plane into a standard crown of a street, that will then cause you to repave and reshape that street. And so we've worked with Public Works on the standards, and again, keeping an eye on minimizing the disruption and the reconstruction of those streets. So in general, the figure on the top of the screen is a pretty good indication of how we've achieved this by minimizing how much construction happens towards the center of the road and taking up those slopes towards the curbside and the parking strip where necessary. And wherever possible, we just contain that construction into just that travel lane, as my very first slide was showing. So this is just some examples of what you'll see. We excavate the track slab. It's 8 to 9 to 11 feet wide, depending on the situation in the street. We pull in the rail and line it and put in the rebar. The photo of the big machine on the upper right is from an earlier project in Portland. I don't think you'll see a paving machine like this one. The contractors I've worked with lately have just found doing the hand placement and hand finishing has been the best and most efficient way to achieve the track construction. There are some public utilities that we're relocating. We took care of most of water lines that are underneath the tracks, directly parallel underneath the tracks, providing that the ability for future developments to access or the maintenance of these lines. Sanitary sewers as well, but in many cases we were able to keep the sanitary sewers in place and just modify the access points. So, and in most cases we got the access points, the manholes, outside of the trackway, which is the best scenario, but in some cases we actually put them between the rails, and then it's just working through an operational agreement with Public Works on their needs for access and times of day when they need to get into inspect or maintain their infrastructure. The electric, I mentioned that the streetcar is a hybrid wireless vehicle. The blue dashes represents those segments that will not have wires, and the streetcar will be running on batteries. The red segments are where we will have wires. The green dash you see here on Hudson, this is on that, again, is the wonky term of non-revenue track. This is just the track that serves that accesses the maintenance facility. There is an opportunity if we need to reduce scope because of when the bids come in, that the green dashes you see there, we might exercise an option to remove that OCS, the wires, as a contingency to our bidding and cost estimate. There's several slides here about the poles because there's a lot of interest in what these wires will look like, and so we've worked very hard to make sure we're minimizing the number of poles and keeping the overhead infrastructure as light as possible. The reason for the wires is we have our electrical power stations that provide the power, 750 volts of DC current, is fed underground and goes to what we call a feeder pole. It goes up to the pole and then services the wire, as you see with the arrows. As the streetcar rolls through, that powers the traction motors of the streetcar to propel the streetcar. And what comes out at the end is a residual voltage that is then returned through the rail. It's a very low voltage. It's a very safe voltage, but it completes the circuit by traveling through the rail and then connecting back to the substation. This is just an example of one project in Portland where we tried to keep that, again, infrastructure very light. There are more support systems through corners or turns, as you can imagine, in order to keep that wire over the tracks properly. But at the request of Public Works, we had a concerted effort to reduce the number of poles along the right-of-way. So we're adding a pole every 80 feet in the wired segments, and so we looked at existing street lights and existing traffic signals or traffic signals that we were replacing because of the streetcar, and we tried to consolidate as many of those existing and new poles that we were introducing. So I think we, in the end, eliminated about 100 poles along the right-of-way by consolidating primarily streetlight poles. And then in the case, generally the streetcar is close enough to a curve that we have that small cantilever support system, but in the case of Hudson and maybe one or two other cases, but Hudson south of the boulevard, we have what we call span wire. So there's two poles, one on either side with a supporting wire that stretches between. As I mentioned before, all the poles along the park side have been coordinated and consolidated with the park designer and the Hudson Road designer. The traction power substations, these are placed about every half mile. They are intended to be smaller and more modest units. They're about 10 feet wide by 14, 15 feet long, and maybe 10 or 11 feet high. We have 5 along the route, indicated with the green rectangles here, one at the maintenance facility at the south end, and then generally we tried to find places that were very discreet, and primarily we looked at alleys between the streets and the back sides of properties in order to keep these a little more discreet in their placement and not affecting any future developable land frontage along any of the streets. So, and the size of these rectangles don't reflect the scale of these substations. The stops themselves are designed to be very modest, very but attractive places where the patrons get on and off the streetcar. We provide level boarding for full accessibility at all doors of the streetcar, which are primarily at the center of the unit. So you see the shadow of the streetcar there on the tracks. The doors are in that middle segment, and so in the platform, we have provided the level boarding at this location. So towards the front of the vehicle, which is on the left side of the image, the platform will slope downward and to a curb height that's more traditional. It's like 6 to 8 inches of curb height to a lower flat end towards the front. And the intention behind that is so these platforms can be jointly used by Embark buses. And that way Embark can use a bus to supplement the service if there's a big event happening, or if there's a utility procedure happening or some other disruption along the alignment, then they can supplement the service with buses and still use the same platforms. Now, the shelters we were talking about, well, this shows how the streetcars, the section on the left side shows how the platforms are really just an extension into the parking zone and raised up above the sidewalk. So there are railings on the back side of the platform for edge protection, and the shelter will also be placed there. And this shows the windscreen function of the standard shelter, where you have a wall on 3 sides plus a bench. And then outside of the shelter, we have the information pylon that Embark is designing, and we're busily incorporating into the stop layouts, as well as a future potential for a ticket vending machine. Now, stop number 5, this is a rendering because that shows we're looking essentially from the boulevard back towards Robinson. And so the train in the picture is on that Bricktown Loop storage area where it will be receiving a charge. We have a center platform, so there is no opportunity for edge walls on the edges of the platform, and we have a central canopy. And so the request from the Transportation Subcommittee was to incorporate wind protection. And my apologies, the rendering here does not do it justice. Those wind walls that you see are aligned along that spine of the stop itself, so it won't be sticking out into the waiting area for the patron as you see. So it will be aligned along that spine, and so it provides sufficient space. And then also the pylon, as you see, which is under development in the center there. So with our plans and specifications that we've provided, we've also provided an update on the cost estimate. We've had some new information come in from other projects, very recent projects in El Paso that is now about 6 months into their construction, and also a very recent bid in Charlotte. And so with that information, we are very comfortable with our cost estimates. We are right at the budget, as we see. And so we still have, because we have your budget in mind, we still have built in these abilities to adjust the scope if we need to go there. These are elements of the project that are very nice to have, that are listed here, but if we needed to, the streetcar could function fully and successfully if we need to adjust the scope because of an unexpected increase in prices in the industry. This is not the order of the deductive alternates. if we had a recommendation, we will be coming up with a recommendation, but my preliminary suggestion would be that we'd be starting with number 2, 3, and 4, and then ending with 1. The Hudson Y is a functional arrangement of the tracks that allows for the streetcar to be able to turn around. It doesn't, the operations could survive without it, but it's one that we don't want to go unless we really, truly have to. And then we also have some other ideas if we're really in a bind. But in general, we're at $57.1 million, and we're right on budget, and we've calibrated it, as I mentioned, with recent pricing here in Oklahoma City, as well as the recent pricing for similar streetcars around the country. So.
Mark, before you take that down, I want to make sure that we understand this. Your estimate of the bid is $57 million, but if it turns out to be more than that, if the bid is more than that, then these are the things that you would suggest that we, as deduction alternates, not additions.
Correct.
They're in the $57 million.
Correct.
They're in the $57 million.
They are.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other questions? So with your approval and City Council approval, we'll be letting the documents to bid on August 31st with a bid opening on October 11th. And we'll be back for approvals with that. And with construction notice to proceed in November, and the first milestone will be to complete the tracks at the maintenance facility, so the streetcars, which will be starting to be delivered, will have a place to be stored, and then the focus will be on that, again, non-revenue track, that service track on Hudson, so the streetcars will be able to operate up and down Hudson parallel to the park there to test and burn in those vehicles. There's a certain amount of operating time that you need to perform before they can enter into a service for regular patrons. In March of 18 is our milestone to complete the loop for the Bricktown. This will provide more training for operators and burning in the vehicles. And then the substantial completion is scheduled for the Midtown for the entire project in August of 18. And this, again, allows about 3 months for the testing and the commissioning and the training of operators, and then opening day is now targeted for November of 18. And that concludes the presentation.
Questions or comments, Kim?
I had a couple, if I may. Thank you very much for this great presentation, especially the flyover. I mean, it's hard to visualize all these things in your mind, but it's certainly a great way to understand that this is a lot of track and a lot of stops, and great job by all. What is the clearance under the span wires?
It is 18 feet, or I think we designed it for 19 feet to allow for any sag, but it's driven by the electrical code, National Electrical Code, and which is 18 feet.
Okay.
And so very similar to traffic signal heads.
So we're safe for all semi?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
I would just, of course, like to ask that we look at the artistic wall at Stop 5, the wind wall, since that's going to be what I now call the 400% corner at Robinson and the Boulevard, since each of the projects that are there already, the Chesapeake Arena, our new hotel and convention center, and certainly our downtown park, are going to have wonderful, beautiful egresses from that stop that would be bringing a lot of people down. So I'm just hoping that some of that architecture and archi-theming will complement each other. And then also, as I advocate for art wherever I can, there's a lot of cities around the world that decorate some of those utilitarian poles. I know it's difficult with the poles that OG&E owns, but some of those poles that are just kind of sitting out there nowhere that maybe could have some kind of wrap or graphic put around it just to again, promote the line itself or add some beauty or spark some interest in that area, might be something to be considered. Thank you.
Nathaniel, anything from the subcommittee?
We had a few detailed questions along the way, but we were happy with what we saw, and also asked about the budget, and understand that there's other cities, have maybe been surprised by increasing costs, but luckily we've been able to factor that in. And Mike Mize told us yesterday that ADG had an independent consultant look at the costs, and not without seeing this, looked out on their own and saw that had the same conclusion. So, we can always be surprised, but I feel pretty good about the costs as they are, and certainly the design that's gone into this. And so our committee unanimously approved, and so I'll move this today.
And we're excited. Just one note on the pre-qualification of the contractors, you have 4 A teams that we can see, so we expect good pricing.
Nathaniel has moved to approval. Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution that's before us. This is a red letter day for us. Is there further discussion? Michael?
Of course, I'm going to support this, but I keep thinking about that, what was it, the deductive alternatives. What is the strategy? I'm used to, on some of these other projects, having bid alternates. Is there a particular strategy about doing it the way Tom so eloquently explained it?
Well, as I understand the bidding process here in Oklahoma City is that you have just a couple days in order to make adjustments to the scope.
Well, what it helps really is that it identifies the prices right there, and we don't have to go into a negotiation with contractors. So there is a price right there that we know we can use.
But again, it's just a little different than the way that I'm.
It is. You can do ads or you can do deducts.
Yeah. Learn a lot. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah, I wanted to point out, so they didn't bring them today, but yesterday they had these 24 by 36 booklets that were like 400 pages each, front and back, that were the plan that represented the 20 months of
120
plan.
pounds of plans, yes.
So I have a nice picture of Mike, thumbing through it and scratching his chin. We should have added it to the slide, but didn't have time. But you just know there's a lot of work, and congratulations to the team on all the work that went into this. It's very impressive. So.
Nathaniel, you feel pretty good about telling us that this has been fully vetted over time in your subcommittee? Yes. I do too. You guys have done a great job. All right. It's been moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is unanimously approved. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate your work. That brings us to item 21, David.
Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 21 is recommend resolution approving amendment number 1 to the contract with Cleveland Track Material Incorporated for MAPS 3 Transit Modern Streetcar Mainline Special Track Work, increase to $253,686, project M3-S007B. If you recall, at the last meeting, we did an amendment similar to this because we have 2 contracts for the streetcar rail. One of them is for the straight rail, and one of them is what we call special track work, so it's the curved pieces, switches, and those things. This is for the curved pieces, and the reason we have this is because we'd already ordered the track when we decided to change the alignment to go down to the convention center. So we were able to just amend the contract to get what we needed to get down there. So this comes with the approval from the subcommittee.
Further discussion? Been moved that we approve it. It's been seconded by Kim. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. Next item, David.
Item 22 is recommend resolution approving change order number 17, MAPS 3 Oklahoma River Phase 3 Whitewater Facility, increase to $27,413.13, project M3-R004/WC-0817/SC-0912. Yes, we have completed the Whitewater, and it is in operation, but these are items that we continue to come across either through punch list or because there's still contingency funds there, things that may have been left out or things that after operations began found that they were advantageous to have, so we continue to work with the contractor on this. Several items, a lot of these are for small amounts of money, but item 1 is actually, and 2 are actually credits back to the the project. I'll point out, pardon me, I'll point out that item number 10 is the most significant item, and as if you will recall, right after we opened it, the water had a lot of dirt in it, and that was for many reasons, but we have worked with the contractor and the Boathouse Foundation and come up with a solution for that, and they have built a apparatus that is similar to a swimming pool vacuum, if any of you have had the pleasure of vacuuming a pool. And this has a head that goes around the bottom, has a pump that floats, and then there's piping that takes this out. And what they're able to do is go to the areas where that dirt settles at night and pump a lot of it out. If you've been out there recently, I think you'll agree that it's been very successful. If you saw the pictures in the paper recently, it has changed the color of the water, and we continue to work on that. The price for this entire apparatus was $37,000. It's been agreed to split this 3 different ways. The contractor will pay for a portion of it. The Boathouse Foundation will pay for a portion of it because they will ultimately keep the equipment and be able to use it on a long-term basis. And then the MAPS team has agreed to pay $15,000 of it. So it's split 3 ways, and like I said, it's been very effective to this point. So that's the largest part on the change order. This comes with the approval from the River Subcommittee.
Any comment, Dee?
Nope, we approve.
She's moved that we approve it. It's been seconded, Michael. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. Dee, would you or Michael like to give us just a couple of minutes of the great news that's happened since we've opened the Whitewater facility, how that's, you got really sensational reports about the usage and how it's been received by the public. Could you guys give us a minute or 2 of that?
Sure. It's been beyond, I think, what anyone anticipated, and happy to say that you can still use it during the off-season at a discounted rate during the week. So they're really pleased with what's happened there, and we're really pleased that everything's going so smoothly. Mike?
I think Mike gave us reports. It indicated it'd been well received, and the operations were going well. I think the main limiting factor to this point has been the number of guides. So it hasn't been any equipment issues or operational issues other than just having enough trained guides available to do it. So when you call and maybe they're booked up, it's more because of the issue of a lack of guides than it is anything else. So they think they can handle much more capacity in the future as it grows. And I know I saw an article too, I guess, Oklahoma State University and some of the local fire departments are apparently utilizing it for their swift water training and some of those things out there. And I think OSU's even branded some of the facilities out there now. I'm going to be teaching classes there, so that'll be another good use for the facility. So, and I know I'm going out this evening and going rafting. So,
wow!
Come on out.
Well, I would just add that we got wonderful visibility in the Olympic television presentations about what was going on at the river and in the Whitewater facility, and it was really, the timing has been really great for us, and I congratulate the subcommittee and all the work that's been done, and David and his staff. This has really brought a lot of visibility to Oklahoma City and going much better even than any of us expected, so many thanks. Okay, we're under item 23, new business. Anything else under new business? All right, that brings us then to the subcommittee reports. I guess we've heard from most of the subcommittees today, but is there anyone that wants to, has any other item? Michael?
Yeah, I just wanted to update everyone and remind you that the First Wellness Center, operated by Healthy Living, Inc., is projected to be completed by December and open for business in January. And with the exception of a couple of us, I include myself in that, remember that these wellness centers are for folks 50 years of age and older. And I know the chairman of, Bill Fleming, the chairman of the board of Healthy Living, Inc., would be loved to hear from anyone. It would be a great Christmas gift. Most of you guys aren't eligible necessarily, but your parents or your grandparents, great Christmas gift, I think. So call Bill. David has his number. And I think that would be a wonderful thing to do. We are going to be touring the Wellness Subcommittee. I invite you all, if you can attend, on September the 15th at 9. We will be visiting, touring Wellness Center number 1. Excited about that. Wellness number 2 is projected to be completed in December of next year. And so we're off and running. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michael. Bob?
Could I ask Mike, as one of those eligible to participate there, how and when are they advertising memberships, starting to sell memberships, or however that's being handled?
Well, again, I know Bill Fleming David, you can elaborate on that, but Bill Fleming has been going around and visiting with senior groups and aging groups and looking for founding memberships. I think there are going to be a couple categories. One that costs a little bit more will allow for a multi-year membership, and then regular membership, as I recall, again, the dues is $25 a month. And so maybe you might have more to elaborate on that, but that's what I do.
I don't, but I will get that for you, whether they have a website or, I don't think Bill would want the whole community calling him on his cell phone, so we'll find out. I know that they just this week, I believe, hired an executive director who came to the meeting, so we'll find out that information and be able to publicize that.
Anything else, Kim?
Parks had a subcommittee meeting yesterday, had a great quorum, great presentation. We're moving forward to 100% construction drawings and getting ready to hopefully approve those next month or in October, so that by November we get that to council and get that bid package out. So things are moving forward in a great track.
Great. Any other subcommittee? All right. Well, that brings us then to item number 25, informational items. There are a number of them there. I know that you've had a chance to look at them all. I'm going to give David a chance to summarize any he wants to highlight, but are there any that you have a specific question about? If not, David, are there any that you need to highlight for us?
On your screen, you can see the acquisition map for the convention center area, and you can see that it's going very well. There's a couple of parcels that will go into condemnation, but it's gone better than we had ever expected. And then the Lower Park land acquisition continues also in various stages, with some acquired, some under contract, offers made, and then maybe a condemnation case or two down there. So then further on your informational items, items C, D, E, well, C, D, and E are real estate purchases that have taken place. And then F and G are easements that were taken for sidewalk construction. And I'd like to point out item H on there is a contract that we took straight to council because of timing issues and when it was bid. But this is for that first bid package for the convention center area. It came in at $279, and we had a budget of $700, so it was a really good number there. And then likewise, a contract award for mowing and string trimming and weed control for those properties that we buy in the convention center area. This is just like what we're doing right now in the park area. So I can answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions for David about the informational items? All right, that brings us to David, your update. Anything else that you need to add for us?
Very, very quickly, We've talked about the river, the whitewater. The RFP for operator of Wellness Center number 3 has been scheduled. The interviews for that have been scheduled. We still have sidewalks under construction. We have 2 parts of the I-44 trails out for bid, and Phase 3 trails are in design. We've talked about the convention center, and you saw stuff on that today. Fairgrounds Expo building is nearing completion, and Ms. Lowe mentioned what was going on at the park with the utilities that are out there, and then we saw everything that was going on with the streetcar. So it's very busy.
Any questions for David about any of the projects? All right, then. That brings us to item number 27, comments by the board.
I have one.
Yes,
A little birdie has told me that yesterday was your birthday.
it was. Now, I've had quite a few birthdays, so I don't celebrate them quite as much, but I had a good day yesterday.
Well, we're glad to hear that, and cheers to another trip around the sun.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. Anybody else? All right. David, any staff members have comments?
Not that I'm aware of.
All right. Then, any citizens here that have any comments that they'd like to come before the Citizens Advisory Board? Hearing none, then let's move to item number 28. Bob wanted to move for adjournment. Didn't you, Bob? And Nathaniel wanted to second it. Didn't you, Nathaniel? And is there further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. We're adjourned. Thank you.